Game 1 was between Rapport and Nakamura. The FIDE Grand Prix 2022 runner-up and winner faced each other for only the 6th time in their career in classical tournaments, with Nakamura having 3 wins and 2 draws against Rapport. With the Berlin defense being played, we had to wait and see if we would have 3 out of 3 decisive Berlin defense games involving Nakamura in the candidates tournament, or the opening would slowly reclaim its drawing on top-level reputation. Well, it turned out to be the latter. So taking a look at the game, another anti-Berlin happened. And another game where white chose an early bishop to g5. Unlike Duda, Rajabov, Naka went for h6 and g5 plan, just like in the first round against Fabi, it seems. So perhaps the structure was exactly what Rapport was hoping and aiming for. Hikaru, however, looked much more clinic this time compared to his game versus Fabi, as he would play quickly and make good moves. He managed to equalize with ease and kept playing precisely right until the end. The draw was a logical outcome, it seems, of this game. So after knight d7, d4, and queen c3, after queen takes e6, queen b3, knight c5, exchanging queens, and by move 20 they had already exchanged the majority of their pieces, including a pair of rooks, and now we simply just see a check, king e6 taking on a7, and rook a2, knight c7, king makes it to the center. And although black seems to be pushing here quite well, it is still looking like a draw for both parts, exchanging the last pair of rooks and then slowly agreeing to a draw. Game number 2 was Nepomniachtchi versus Firouzja. If we were to expect a sharp game in today's round, it would definitely be Nepomniachtchi versus Firouzja, and the game indeed did live up to those expectations, with the two players following the main line of the Najdov, albeit with a slightly different move order. The first major deviation came at move 15, when Firouzja replies to f5 with the fairly uncommon bishop to c4, followed by Nepomniachtchi's king b1 preparing to continue his march on Alireza's kingside a few moves later with f6. The balance already started tipping in favor of white when Firouzja spent 70 minutes on 3 different moves, including the suboptimal bishop takes c1, ending with the 37 minutes on the clock and still a complicated position to handle for 18 moves more until the time control was reached. What was undoubtedly the most exciting game of today's round was definitely the matchup between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Alireza Firouzja, and I was quite intrigued by the opening choice, and I was watching the game live. I think the last move I saw Nepo play was f5, and right from that point I was just so in tune. I think I was looking at the evaluation as well as the fact that perhaps to a human eye it would look scary on black's part. I would definitely be frightened for my king side, but let's take a deeper look into what happened in this game. So the opening choice was more fun in this game. Alireza chose the knight off variation of the Sicilian defense, and it was the open Sicilian knight b3 after e5, queen d2, long castling here, b5 and g5 and b4, already throwing fuel into the fire here, where white is attacking on f6 and black is attacking on c3. And after knight e2, knight to e8, f4 was an excellent move, and after a5, f5. In a well-known trendy line with over 6,000 games in our annotators database, Firouzja played an extremely rare bishop to c4, which was tested only by the correspondence players, with knight g3 then being the top engine offer. Ex-candidate picked more practical king b1, and after a4, knight b to c1, d5, f6, g takes, and knight takes. Firouzja kept blitzing his move until Nepo played knight to g3. The position was balanced according to the engine, whilst extremely unclear for a human eye, and half an hour of thinking, Alireza decided to reply with bishop takes f1, which was the first inaccuracy of his in this game. And after rook h takes f1, which was the natural reply, Alireza spent another half an hour over the next move a3, b3, king h8, and e takes d5. And despite the surprise opening preparation from Alireza, Jan was the one to win the theoretical battle, and by move 23, he already had 50 minutes more than his opponent on the clock, and seemingly more comfortable position on the board, yet the position was far from easy. But with knight to d6, Alireza blunders the b-pawn, and after queen takes b4, White's advantage becomes decisive. Nepomniachtchi continues playing powerful moves and defeated the youngest player in the event quite convincingly here. Bishop to a5, knight to c4, and no matter the pawn proved to be too much of an advantage here, rook takes h7, king takes h7, queen to h5, king to g8, and checkmate is now unavoidable. Knight takes f5, bishop f6, and rook to g8, and Alireza resigned. In Game 3, we had Duda versus Radjabov. Jan-Christoph Duda and Taimur Radjabov have faced each other only once in classical chess, specifically in the 81st edition of the Tata Steel Masters tournament in 2019, with the game being drawn. In this game, we had another Ruy Lopez after knight f6 d3. White picked quite a rare variation in the anti-Berlin with bishop c5, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, d6, knight c3, and bishop to d7. Already by move 8, the position was brand new. Knight to a4 after Taimur's inaccurate bishop to b4. Jan-Christoph Duda decided to continue with c3, bishop to a5, b4 castles, and just exchanging, opening up the g-file for black, and after king h1, long castles was quite interesting. Knight takes b6, a takes b6, and white had a slight edge with accurate play. White could also have transformed the advantage into something more. But after queen to f3, f5, very, very good move by Taimur here. Black managed to stabilize the position, and later players entered a quiet rook endgame, which ended in a draw. So just exchanging here, and after queen exchanges, both players had both pairs of rooks and one exchanged, and now just simplifying to a pawn ending, which then ended in a draw after repetition by move 41. Game 4, we had Ding versus Caruana. The current world number 2, Ding Liren, faced the former for quite a long time number 2 and the candidate's veteran Fabiano Caruana in a game with a Rogosian defense on the board. Ding goes for quite the trendy queen a4 on move 5. Fabiano chose to play knight a4 on move 7, which has been played on the high level once before and not in a classical game. Ding Liren started with d4 here against Fabiano Caruana, and in this Rogosian defense, Ding Liren plays the trendy queen to a4, knight c6, e3 castles, and queen c2. Check on move 5, Caruana goes offbeat knight a5, which has been tested earlier once before, and after 3 minutes of thinking, Ding Liren plays the most principled c5 move here. So b6, bishop d2, and just trying to attack the bishop that is sitting on b4. Of course, it is impossible here for black to play the bishop back just because of white's b4 move, and just decides to take on c3, queen takes c3, a5, and here we have a number of exchanges where the rook goes back, and after queen to b3, white has a slight edge thanks to their dominance over the c-file, but only on the 17th move. Caruana decides to sacrifice his b-pawn over here. And it was considered that rook c8 was slightly inaccurate, but rather queen d7 and rook c3 was another way to go, but here after rook takes, queen takes b6, and a4, queen b4. Black finds the compensation for that pawn, and it proves insufficient for white to be able to convert this. So after the next series of moves, we have another rook ending here, and white only has an extra pawn, now an extra 2 pawns, but like I said, still proves to be nothing but a drawish endgame, unfortunately. And we'll just go through the last couple of moves. And the game lasted for a whole 64 moves, which is quite funny since there are 64 squares on the chessboard. But thank you everyone for watching this very short but sweet recap of round 4. I'll be seeing you tomorrow.